When I was brought on board, the town had already made a commitment to do some planning in this area. So Easton Point is a priority one annexation area for the town of Easton. So there are some parts of Easton Point that are already in the town. Londonderry is one of those. But there's a lot of acreage that's not in the town of Easton. I think it's about 50 acres. And the town of Easton had basically identified it as a priority one area, and that means that as we get further development in the town of Easton, as we see expansion, that this is an area that we want to expand to. Plus we have existing properties down there that are on septic systems, which is not the best thing for the health of the river. So there's a lot of really good reasons why focusing on Easton Point made sense. Over the past, 20 years or so, there's been a number of developers who've come forward with project concepts for Easton Point, yet none of them have been able to move forward for lots of different reasons. And so the town council for Easton basically said, we would like to have a plan, a comprehensive plan. We want to look at this so that whatever ends up being developed down there really makes sense and supports the town of Easton, doesn't detract. And so, of course, between Easton Point and the town of Easton downtown, you have the area on Port Street along between the Parkway and Washington. And that area, it makes complete sense to also include that in the plan so that you can connect the two and so that people will feel comfortable as they enter the gateway of Easton through the waterfront gateway. They can be drawn up the street, basically into the downtown, go spend their money in the shops, in the restaurants, visit the hill, the historic hill, etc. So all of that was part of it. And there's a lot of moving parts because of the annexation complexity, so there's coordinating with the county. And then you also have a lot of environmental challenges, making sure that the river is protected. And you also have some other complexities. We have industrial businesses that are still operational on Easton Point, and so we don't want to necessarily displace them, but we also want to bring in new uses that would include potentially housing, retail, commercial. So, and passive enjoyment, obviously the park, the waterfront park. And so there was a need to kind of figure out how do we make this a place that people want to go to, a place that will attract private investment, but also protect the existing property owners, make sure that they're treated fairly, make sure that the river is enhanced and protected. And so, yeah, this is a pretty complicated document, and that's why it took us 2 years to get it done. That as this plan goes through its process, we'll be interested to hear if people are interested in coming and possibly developing. We've met with developers who are interested in doing housing. We've met with developers who have indicated an interest in possibly doing some office space. We know some businesses that might have an interest in taking office space on the point. We believe that there's a market for possibly condominiums. We know that a lot of folks today are sort of downsizing, getting rid of they want to have the proximity to the water, they want to have a walkable community, but they don't necessarily want to have all the land to take care of. So some of these things are larger trends, but time will tell as the project unfolds. In this project, we have a lot of public space. So we have 11-acre park that the town of Easton is proposing to do. We're pretty sure there's a demand by the community to be able to go to the waterfront and enjoy the park. We know that the boat ramp that exists there is widely used. We'd like to see the services expand. We'd like to see that boat ramp be moved so that we can add services. I'm pretty sure those services would be well utilized. Once a plan is approved and addended into the master plan of Easton, then different market forces will take over and they'll come in and make their own assumptions and studies. And it's not necessarily going to end up like this. This is just a hypothetical to help people wrap their arms around, like, what would this be? What would it be like? In our town meetings, we asked people, what do you want to see? What do you not want to see? And they took all that information back, and we sort of came up with some of the concepts. It's about 300 housing units, I think. There's, again, the boat ramp moves, the addition of a park and a plaza at the end of Port Street. We've talked about having a boardwalk that would go around the point so that people could get access to the water's edge. There's also existing property owners that already have ideas. And so there's one property owner that wants to do a brew tasting or a brewery with a tasting room. There's another one that wants to do a marina and a restaurant. So we also built off of what our existing property owners wanted to do. And another very important part of the plan is the intersection of Port Street and the Parkway. We're calling for a complete renovation of that intersection to make it safer so that people that are using the bike trail that the town of Easton's about to finish and complete through that area, so that they would be safe going across that street, that traffic might be calmed as it's going through there, and that as folks come off of Route 50, they could be directed on the Parkway, and then as they get to that intersection, there might be signage there saying, turn right for the historic waterfront, turn left for the historic downtown. So it becomes a proper gateway for the town of Easton. And we've concepted some things that we think would be great to get at the intersection, right at the corner across from the pool. We are concepting some sort of interpretation center, a place where visitors could come in, learn about the history, perhaps pick up a rented bike if they want, and go from there and ride their bikes onto the trails. We've talked about maybe having some sort of farmer's market or something like that that would be there. At the corner. At the corner. Okay. So that it would become a real feature and a draw. Well, the town of Easton obviously was, and the Easton Economic Development Corporation were in partnership creating the plan. Then the draft plan was presented to the town of Easton staff to really go over. Once the staff signed off on it, they presented it to the Planning and Zoning Commission. That happened last week. The Planning and Zoning Commission have agreed now to call a public hearing, and that'll happen in about 60 days. The plan's going to be available at the library. It'll be available on our website. People will have an opportunity to read it, comment on it, attend the public hearings, voice any concerns, any ideas, etc. After that, if the Planning Commission signs off on it, it would go to the Town Council. The Town Council more than likely will also hold its own public hearing. This is my guess. They don't have to by law, but they probably will. And so we will go through that process with them, and then at some point we really do hope that the plan will get implemented, as I said, or addended into the master plan for the town of Easton. No, there's no need to rush it. People will have time to really contemplate it, and if we need to make changes, we can. We have time. That being said, I will mention there are 4 property owners on Easton Point that are moving through the annexation process. They have officially asked to be annexed into the town. 3 of those property owners are on the water. 1 of them is not. That process is certainly going to be enabled and assisted in the context of a greater plan, knowing that the plan has been developed, but one does not necessarily hinge on the other, because those property owners can move forward without a plan. But it certainly helps, I think, when the elected officials have, and the community at large, has something that they think is going to sort of represent what we're all working toward, so that decisions are made in such a way that they can be informed about it with a vision. and inspired. In this plan, we're looking at a lot of major infrastructure investments. So we want to see the streetscape of Port Street be revitalized or redone from Washington all the way down to the waterfront. New lighting, potentially some new sidewalks. I can't possibly know all the different things. I do know that we would love to see it done in such a way that helps with the environment, that's a green street, if you will. So that is something that needs to be done, and a project of that scope requires many years to be in the works in terms of design, in terms of planning, and in terms of funding. This project has a lot of expensive infrastructure pieces. The streetscape, the intersection that I was talking about, the park itself. These are all public investments. The plaza that we hope to put at the end of Port Street, the boardwalk, these are all public investments that will leverage the private investment that we expect to come. But it takes time, and that's the next phase of things. I call it the implementation phase. We have identified a couple of priorities from our point of view. One priority from our point of view is the creation of additional affordable housing. So we believe that there needs to be more affordable housing along Port Street. There's at least a couple of opportunity sites there. The community has asked for this. The community has also asked that the existing affordable housing be supported and retained. And so we think there's a couple of opportunities there. One is a bricks and mortar, and another would be more through education and supportive services. So we've made that a priority, and our organization is going to move forward with a feasibility study around that. It would talk about what's viable and what kind of services might be supported and what those sources of funding might be. And the community is indicated an interest in seeing historic preservation and interpretation. And there's a couple of opportunity sites there that we want to be sure that are restored if we can, or support someone else to restore them. The Asbury Church is an example of that. It's currently not being used. It's definitely a very important part of the history, and it's at risk. I don't have an answer for that, but hopefully through our process and our analysis we can begin to figure out what might be done. Certainly the park is another priority. That's an 11-acre on-water park that would be an incredible asset to the region, not just to the town. The town of Easton has approved moving forward, at least with beginning to look at how they might develop out that park. That park also has a group working with the town, Friends of Easton Point Park. So there's a huge opportunity there, and I think that's an important asset if you're going to try to leverage private investment in this area. I mean, roughly speaking, it's about a $250 million build out, all in, public and private, just as concepted. And those are very rough preliminary numbers, but it's something for us to kind of wrap our arms around. That's great to know, but now what we need to understand is, okay, but what's the tax impact? You know, what's the tax impact both on the cost side, services, to bringing services to these new properties that have been developed, but also what is the tax impact in terms of now we have an office building there or new housing there, the tax impact to the town and to the county and to the state. We're going to have sales tax impact. We're going to have jobs created, permanent jobs. We're going to have construction jobs. All of that analysis needs to be done, and so we've retained Beacon from Salisbury University to do a complete impact analysis. That study should be done, I believe it's by the end of October. That we see this as, again, an asset to the region and an asset for the county. So the county also needs to grow its tax base. This is a great opportunity. Yes, the property is going to be coming into the town of Easton boundaries, hopefully, And not all of it, by the way. It's up to the property owners to annex when they want to. But when and as they do, and as they are potentially built out over the next 15 years or whatever this is going to be, that impact will go toward the county as well. And so, yes, I think that we want the county to be a full partner in this, and I have no reason to think that they wouldn't be a full partner. They definitely have some concerns and some issues that we need to address. And